People always say that this is the worst Magic the Gathering art of all time, but they do not know the context. Let's see what you think after I tell you the real story. Magic the Gathering revolutionized gaming in general and inspired massive games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon TCG. But it started off with a legendary garage CEO type story that is mythologized in movies like The Social Network, for example. Richard Garfield, may his name be praised, sunrose the game with a set of 295 cards in 1993 that evoked what two wizards battling it out with their mana energy would feel like. Raising fisticuffs to make jazz hands and summon token-like beasts as Ash would one day with Pikachu. The artwork on the card represented this beautifully. Many of the 30-year-old paintings are iconic today. Sarah Angel shows a glorious holy being stoically fighting for your petty nonsense. Counterspell shows a 1980s Chris Angel finding out what it's like to be down low too slow. Animate Dead is badass necromantia times, and Disintegrate looks worrisomely like what it sounds. How is Pierrot the clown holding a dagger whilst balancing on a seesaw with a terrifyingly large blindfolded fox that is not only unnecessarily thick with 3 C's, but is also holding the Smash Bros logo for some reason during a crescent moon, creating enough raw sexual tension to make a painting palette float midair? What was chosen to represent the card Stasis in the first edition of the game? It's an odd choice, but I did some research and I'm here to tell the tale. The one and only was a PhD student testing the game on his friends and building it up with little investment from his dorm room when he commissioned 25 artists, mostly students, to create pieces for the game he would release at Gen Con 1993. Now, he didn't have a lot of capital, so he commissioned his fellow students about $50 per illustration. According to Christopher Rush, the late artist behind the original Black Lotus, Brainstorm, and Lightning Bolt, it's not all that bad. The original 25 were offered royalty benefits and stocks, and illustrating such iconic cards really kickstarted Rush's career and set him as a preeminent fantasy artist. Richard faced many challenges in the early stages of the game because he was trying to create a card game with replayability that would limit the power of certain cards by their scarcity. Meaning that if you opened an Ancestral Recall, you might be the only one in your area that had one. The point being that you would get this wondrous experience of sometimes facing rare, powerful cards that would give you this feeling of awe and leave you pondering what other potent effects could be out there, potentially sealed in the next booster pack you bought. The issue is that no printer could really offer him what he wanted. Collectible cards were all around. Baseball cards, for example, would offer randomized packs, but they were not made to play with. A few shufflings of the card will leave you with what business cards look like if you left them in your pocket after a good launder. He wanted a product that had the quality of bicycle cards, like what you find in casinos or in the hands of, ironically, street magicians. That's the other kind of magic that your aunt thinks you do, no matter how much you explain how cool a planeswalker is. They finally found a printer in Belgium that could not only randomize booster packs, but offered cards that could be reshuffled a reasonable amount of times, and they were off to the races. But let's just say that Richie G did not have a lot of street cred at the time. He hired some art students here and there, but he was looking for a real artist that would lend his game some credibility. Luckily, Richard had access to the key factor in making it big today: nepotism. No, he didn't have anyone buy him the rights to Jackson Pollock or anything, but his father's, mother's, sister's, daughter's, first cousins once removed? Faye Jones, who is one of the US Northwest's most recognizable artists, did a favor to her nephew and illustrated a card for him. The point at the time was to give as little information as possible to the artists. They would usually only get the name of the card. If you were told to draw terror, you could paint what the embodiment of fear would be to you. If you were told to draw a lightning bolt, you could draw a lightning bolt. If you were given Prodigal Sorcerer, you could draw a Frenchman whose electrical razor ran out of battery after he started on his chin. Melissa Benson was famously playful because she was asked to create a nightmare and use the pun of a mare being a horse. They have since changed the creature type on the card to fit her image. So Richard asked his cousin Faye to paint a card, and all she had to go on is the fact that it's called Stasis. Keep in mind that no one at the time knows what a TCG is. This is the first time that anyone had ever commissioned art for a trading card game. She was just told that it would be a card with rules, and that Richard wanted it to be easily recognizable. If you look at Faye Jones's art, it's not like Dr. Garfield received some fluke. He knew exactly what to expect. Her work is imaginative and whimsical and surreal. She's been displayed in over 100 exhibitions and does wonderful work. So she took what she was given and painted something that, granted, is unlike most of the magic art we're used to, but illustrated the idea of something being in such equilibrium that nothing would happen. The full interpretation is of course a secret that only she holds, but we know that she wrote the word standstill on the art, reinforcing the concept of temporal immobility. They chose to crop it out because text doesn't really fit on a magic card, but how could she know? No one had even heard of a magic card before. Anyway, Faye Jones has been receiving royalties from Wizards ever since for her singular contribution to the game, but some people want more. I've even seen this post on Twitter suggesting a Faye Jones secret lair where they use the art that she's illustrated and applied it to some classic cards. Honestly, I would play the hell out of this Ragavan. The card Stasis even became relevant at some point because it created the first ever prison deck. You would play creatures with vigilance so that not untapping your creatures would not be a problem, and you would just bide time until you got rid of your own Stasis on your opponent's turn with Despotic Scepter or Boomerang so that you get to untap and just cast your Stasis again, and you'd be the only player to cast spells. Please don't show this deck to new players, they won't want to play your game. So that's it. Please tell us below what you would have drawn if you were Faye and you were asked to draw Stasis, and subscribe if you're not already and you want to do me an act of kindness and show my bosses that I'm doing the right thing. But mostly, please stop hating on Stasis. It's beautiful, it fits the bill, it's historical, just never play it against me, please.